Welcome to the History AI podcast, where the past comes alive with facts, anecdotes, and a dash of humor. Here are your hosts, Chuck and Marco.
Welcome back, folks. I'm Chuck.
And I'm Marco. We're so glad you're joining us today on the History AI podcast, where we delve into the stories and people that shaped the world.
And today, Marco, we're going deep into the world of surgery and antiseptics. Grab your lab coats and get ready to discover the amazing life of Sir Joseph Lister.
That's right. The man without whom you might not be so eager to undergo surgery. Unless, of course, you enjoy post-surgery infections. Spoiler alert, nobody does.
Well, I'm certainly thankful for him. Let's dive in, starting from the very beginning.
Born in 1827 in Upton, Essex, Joseph Lister was no ordinary baby. Well, okay, maybe as a baby he was pretty ordinary, but he was destined for extraordinary things.
His family had a scientific background. Lister's father, Joseph Jackson Lister, was a pioneer in the design of the achromatic microscope. So, it's safe to say that curiosity ran in the family genes.
With such an environment, it was only natural for young Lister to develop an interest in science.
Speaking of interests, aside from his scientific inclinations, Lister had a penchant for the arts. He loved drawing, something he'd later use to illustrate his medical findings. Imagine if Instagram existed back then. #microscope art.
#science and art.
Now, let's talk about his education. Lister attended 2 Quaker schools, which instilled in him strong moral values. But it was at University College, London, where he pursued his medical studies.
And he wasn't just an average student, he was exceptional. He graduated with honors in 1852. Always striving for excellence, Lister went on to become a Fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons.
Quite the resume for a man in his mid-20s. I was just trying to figure out how to make instant ramen back then.
The gourmet meals of our youth.
So, after Lister completed his education, he really dove headfirst into the medical world. And Marco, let me tell you, it wasn't always a pretty sight.
Right you are, Chuck. Back then, the medical field was very different from today. Hospitals weren't as sanitized, and there was a rampant problem with what they called hospital diseases.
Yep, and for our listeners who might be wondering, hospital diseases were basically infections patients would get after their surgeries. So, imagine going into an operation to fix a broken bone, and coming out with a life-threatening infection.
Heartbreaking, indeed. Lister, being the keen observer he was, recognized the gravity of the issue. He wasn't content just treating symptoms or making do with the status quo. He wanted to tackle the root of the problem.
And that passion took him to Glasgow Royal Infirmary in 1861. There, Lister became the professor of surgery, and he was confronted daily with the harrowing effects of these post-operative infections.
It's worth noting that the standard practice back then was to let air flow freely in surgery rooms. They believed fresh air would prevent gangrene, but the reality was the complete opposite. That open air was teeming with bacteria.
Ugh, makes my skin crawl just thinking about it. Lister was truly a pioneer in his relentless pursuit to understand these infections. His approach was both experimental and observational, often meticulously noting down patterns and effects of different treatments.
His dedication paid off, of course, as we'll delve deeper into in a moment. But it's essential to appreciate just how groundbreaking his observations were at the time. It was the dawn of a new era in medicine.
Absolutely, Marco. The status quo was about to be challenged, and the world of surgery was on the cusp of a transformation. Now, Marco, let's shift gears and talk about that pivotal moment in the 1860s. It's kind of like the medical equivalent of the moon landing.
Oh, absolutely, Chuck. Lister's epiphany came from an unexpected source, Louis Pasteur, the French chemist. Now, Pasteur wasn't a surgeon, but he was making waves with his research on fermentation and the role of microorganisms.
Right. Pasteur's work debunked the popular belief in spontaneous generation, where people thought that living organisms just appear out of nowhere. Pasteur showed that microorganisms were everywhere, and they were the cause behind fermentation and decay.
So, connect the dots, right? Lister read about Pasteur's work and had this aha moment. If microorganisms caused fermentation and decay in food, could they also be responsible for infections in wounds?
Bingo! Lister theorized that these pesky little microorganisms were floating around in the air, landing on wounds, and causing all those post-operative infections. But how do you fight an enemy you can't see?
That's when Lister remembered carbolic acid. This chemical had been used to treat sewage and reduce the awful stench. The key thing? It killed the bacteria causing the smell. Lister began to wonder, could it also kill the bacteria causing infections in surgical wounds?
Putting theory into practice, Lister started using carbolic acid to clean surgical instruments, the wounds themselves, and even the surgical dressings. This was revolutionary because, before this, surgical tools might be used on multiple patients without any thorough cleaning. The mere concept of sterile was foreign to surgery.
And the results? They were nothing short of miraculous. The rate of post-surgical infections plummeted wherever his methods were applied. Lister had effectively introduced the world to antiseptic surgery.
It's incredible to think about. One man's dedication to understanding a problem, combined with a sprinkle of interdisciplinary knowledge, led to a monumental shift in medical science.
A true testament to the power of curiosity and persistence. Lister's discovery wasn't just about introducing carbolic acid to surgery, it was about changing the entire mindset of the medical community. His methods spread like wildfire. Hospitals across the world adopted his techniques, and soon, the overall mortality rate from surgeries plummeted.
And let's not forget his influence on future medical professionals. Students for generations were taught the importance of sterilization, and many regard him as the father of modern surgery.
What a title! And his legacy didn't stop there. His contributions led to the development of Listerine.
Wait, like the mouthwash?
Exactly. Although Listerine wasn't developed by Lister himself, it was named in his honor, given its antiseptic properties.
Wow! So, every time you're freshening your breath, you're also paying homage to Joseph Lister. Who knew? From the mind behind the History AI podcast comes an electrifying journey into the past. A ripple through time, Franklin's Folly. Dive into a tale where Benjamin Franklin, America's beloved inventor, takes an unexpected journey through time. But with his leap, he unleashes a powerful ripple. Now, with dark forces lurking in the shadows, harnessing this energy to shatter and enslave the world, it's a race against time. Will Franklin fix the future? Or will history rewrite itself? Uncover the secrets. A ripple through time, Franklin's Folly. Time has never been more fragile. On Amazon pre-sale now. Tragically, as with all great figures, Lister's time on Earth came to an end. He passed away in 1912, but his legacy in the medical world remains evergreen.
To this day, surgical wards around the world continue to implement his teachings. It's amazing to think how many lives have been saved thanks to Lister's innovations.
A true hero, in every sense of the word.
And that, dear listeners, is the remarkable story of Sir Joseph Lister.
So, next time you're getting a minor surgery or simply gargling some mouthwash, take a moment to thank Mr. Lister.
I definitely will. As always, if you enjoyed today's episode, please follow, rate, and share the History AI podcast.
Your support means the world to us. Until next time, I'm Chuck.
And I'm Marco. Stay curious, folks.